Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Lextran Board of Directors work session for April of 2025. My name is Fred Combs, and to lead our meeting this morning, I'll hand it over to our board chair, Mr. Harding Dow.
Thank you, Fred. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We will call this meeting of the board to order. Is there any public comment today? Seeing none, we will move into our prime line item for today, the review of the fiscal year operating budget and capital plan for 2026. George, I believe you had.
Yeah, I'll just say a couple of things. We had a finance committee meeting last week, and we went through this pretty thoroughly. We had made some suggestions prior to that meeting, and the suggestions were taken by staff, and they adjusted some of the numbers. So what you're seeing has been reviewed by the finance committee, and we felt pretty good about it.
Thank you, George. Okay, to get us started, our mission statement: we serve people in our community with mobility solutions. And congratulations to Michael Burnett, our rodeo champion, who is fourth place in this year's International Bus Rodeo. We could not be more proud of Mr. Burnett. And I know Jason and Randolph and Isaiah, also pictured there, went to support him. I am honestly not shocked he did so well, because he is a tremendous operator, tremendous competitor, and a really great person. So congratulations to Mr. Burnett, and we look forward to see what he can do in the future. So to jump in for highlights for this year, fiscal year 25, we began the renovation of the interior of the transit center. We are officially kicked off and underway. Our operations are on High Street. So far, things are going fairly smoothly. We might have to make a tweak here and there, but things are off and running. Also this year, we negotiated a new collective bargaining agreement. That's a 3-year agreement that came with improvements to wages and some procedures that we think help strengthen our hiring and retention. We have launched 2 major planning efforts. The first is the microtransit feasibility study, and the second is the strategic plan. We think that the microtransit feasibility study will be finished in this fiscal year, but there's a possibility that it might carry over to the very first month of next fiscal year. And the strategic plan should be finished this calendar year. We did service improvements for on-time performance. The board was aware of those changes when we made those back in December. We've made real progress on our capital projects. Specifically the CNG fueling infrastructure. That project is complete and online now, and we are working towards completion of the maintenance safety enhancements for our CNG maintenance work. For technology, we have the Avail project and the TSI project. Both of those are going well. We're upgrading the vehicle tracking dispatch security systems, and then there's new customer-facing signage as well. We hope to finish that out over the summer. Our focus on hiring and retention, I really can't brag enough on how well staff has worked tirelessly to get us back to closer to full staff. We've made significant strides as both in recruiting and training. Really major kudos to staff who made that happen. We're in such a much better place this year than where we were last year, to the point that I'm still shocked to be able to say that we are fully staffed at the moment, right? Or really close to it, if not fully staffed.
That's awesome.
For operators. So kudos for that work. We've held several paratransit community outreach sessions, and that is to both inform our client base on paratransit and get input from them on how we can improve and do better. And finally, we have added 10 new paratransit vehicles and 6 new fixed route vehicles into service this year. So what do we have looking ahead for next year? So fiscal year 2026, that's the budget that we are going to be discussing today. Continuation and completion of those major projects, including the interior renovation of the transit center, the ITS, so the Avail and the camera project, the CNG maintenance facility improvements, the microtransit feasibility study, and the strategic plan. We also are looking to realize those paratransit on-time performance improvements that we've been talking about. We hope that the vehicles that we put into service a few weeks ago have improved the on-time performance. We're kind of waiting on a data update for that. We have 2 major program updates for the FTA this year. That's our Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program and our Title VI program. Included in the capital plan that's going to be discussed today is the first half of an operator barrier installation project. We split that up between this fiscal year and next fiscal year because we don't think that we can get through the entire fleet in 1 year. But we're going to be working on that. Also, we're planning some fixed route service improvements, again, additional on-time performance improvements, and then getting service out to Kearney Ridge. That's going to be revenue neutral service improvements that we hope will help the efficiency of the system. We're going to continue the community conversations that has sprung up around the new service models. So both microtransit and the downtown circulator, which you can think of as a trolley service. In this budget that we have proposing today, there is no increase in service. So everything is carrying forward service levels where we are now, and we're really not in a fiscal position to be able to expand service. If so, there are places in our fixed route network that we know that we need to work on, particularly Polo Club and Baptist Health. We don't have service out there yet. There's frequency gaps that we know that we need to work on. So there are areas of service that we know we need to improve. We're just not in a position at the moment to be able to do that. We're going to be incorporating new vehicles into our fleet, both fixed route and paratransit, over the next year. We have 10 cutaways proposed in this capital plan. We're also going to be continuing to look for other funding sources or maybe reallocating some existing funding sources for additional vehicles throughout the year. And we also have 10 fixed route buses that are currently on order with existing grant funding for 1 additional electric that's not been ordered yet. So one new document this year that's different is our capital program. And the intent of this document is to both communicate priorities, both funded and unfunded, on the capital side. We always want to maintain a state of good repair. And as we discuss our future and our financial position, we're going to have to make some difficult trade-offs. And if we have a better sense of where we are, where our capital assets are, I think that helps that conversation. This document will also help our grant writing process because we can point back to and say, hey, in our applications, this project has been identified as a priority. There are several unfunded high priority projects that are in the program, which include paratransit revenue vehicles. Those are partially funded, but the gap in revenue vehicles is sort of detailed in this program, as well as fixed route revenue vehicles, the exterior portion of the transit center renovation, the operator barriers. Again, we're proposing half this year and half next year, as well as on-route facilities that we've partially funded, where we have done so much good work on our ramp program in the previous years. We felt like this was appropriate for this year. So the document that you have in front of you does not have incorporated yet the feedback that we got from the Finance Committee. That will be coming with the next revision, which includes to bring out safety. So we want to make sure that all the safety projects in this program are appropriately reflected in the priority rankings. To further refine the transit center exterior into smaller pieces of work, clarification on facilities maintenance. That is the major projects that we know that we're going to have to replace. HVAC, roof, and site work. This is what we talked about in Finance Committee, so more detail about that. And then more information on transit enhancements in the ramp program.
Now, let me say something about that, Fred.
Sure.
What we talked about on capital improvements to this building, and just having it laid out, and maybe even in 10-year, whatever the increment is, where we're going to have to replace roof, we're going to have to replace HVAC, other major expenditures here, and then making sure that we have enough money put back to pay for those things. And what do we call that capital account that we pull out?
Our reserve, reserve.
So we have a capital reserve account that we started, and it's what, $5 million?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it's in the $5 million range now, and it was purposely done for these things. So we just want to see how the expenses line up with the money, and to ensure that we're holding back enough for when these things happen, it's not a crisis.
Yes. And yeah, we want to get that level of detail in this program with our next revision. And of course, anything that our committee talks about today that we need to revise this program, we're happy to take that under advisement as well. There was one mistake that I caught this morning, which is the number of paratransit vehicles at or beyond their useful life. It's 50, and I think in the document I had 58. So there was an error there. That's correct in the document that you have in front of you. Okay, so a quick note about where our fleet stands at the moment. This is our fixed route fleet. We have crossed to the point where all of the vehicles that are beyond their useful life, or will be in this fiscal year, are diesel and hybrid. Everything moving forward to CNG and electric. So again, we're going to be working to replace those vehicles that are at or beyond their useful life as we go. But I also want to note that we made a effort to smooth out the vehicle purchases per year. And this chart does a pretty good job of showing that. So we're between 4 and 7 vehicles per year. I think with the exception of 2020. That is, it's outlined in the capital program, but we feel that that is the best way to, make things a little more smooth. We had a real increase in vehicles purchased in 2007. That was based on the referendum in 2004. So that backlog of everything coming at its useful life at one time, we've done a good job of smoothing that out. And that's what we aim to continue doing as we move forward. So between 5 and 6 vehicles per year, that'll keep our fleet rotation pretty well smooth.
So did we just not buy any vehicles in 2020?
We did not. We might have placed an order in 2020, but we didn't receive any in 2020, and I don't recall how that shook out. I don't know if you all do.
Since it usually takes 2 years to receive a vehicle, especially electric, that was just the spacing of when they were received, and then of course, everything stopped in 2020, so.
And then 2018 is not on there too. It's the same thing. We started really getting our feet under us with the grant writing in 2017, 2018. That's why we've been more consistent from that point on.
Might be better, Fred, to include those years, just so you can see the
Okay.
gaps.
Sure, yeah, I can do that.
Because it doesn't look like every year we're buying that.
On the
You have a lot of gap years on the left side of that
yeah,
useful lifeline.
for sure. I mean, everything was those 2007s. I think we relied so heavily on those. Paratransit side is a little bit of a different story, and there's a different dimension with the paratransit fleet that we've really talked about, and that's the passenger capacity. In our conversations with RATP Dev, we've identified one strategy is to move away from the smaller vehicles and have larger vehicles that we can move more than one wheelchair. I think that's really the turning point of this. So our current fleet is 69 vehicles, but about half of those have a capacity of 4 or less. So long term, our goal is to have 62 cutaways, so fewer vehicles, but with a higher maximum capacity. So no less than 8, but preferably 12. If it's possible to get 3 wheelchair vehicle, we would do that, but most likely that would be 2.
So either an 8 or a 12 is a excuse me, a 2 wheelchair vehicle.
Yes. So this picture is of a smaller van that would only have capacity for 1 wheelchair. So as you look at the chart, 2019 through 2012, those vehicles are going to be at or beyond their useful life. So a 5-year useful life for a paratransit vehicle. The 2021s, those are leased, but those are also going to be, hitting that 5-year mark next year. With the capacities, that's where we need to really focus. How can we get both the older vehicles replaced and improve the capacity per vehicle? So that's kind of the 2 ways that we're approaching this. In the capital plan that we have presented here, there is 10 vehicles that we're proposing to purchase, but the gap is much bigger than that. So that's one of those trade-offs that I think that we need to talk about it and just make sure that the board is aware. As we continue to look for funding, we have 10 outlined today. I hope when I'm doing this next year that we have purchased more than 10 through other grant funding sources. So, Randolph can probably speak to this much more eloquently than I can. If we have any questions on paratransit fleet in particular, we're happy to jump into that.
How often do you have more than, only time I've ever ridden wheels, it's been 1 wheelchair and another passenger. How often do you have a need for more than 1 wheelchair in
I think over the last year, we've noticed that it's not more so of the space of the wheelchair, it's more so the space of the mobility device. So having additional leg legroom space or having more space for different mobility devices as far as like a scooter or something like that, or extra large for wheelchair versus a standard size wheelchair, that's what it was concerned.
Okay.
Yeah, I was wondering, do we have data on the number of regular users that have some type of device?
Yes.
Wheelchair?
Yep.
I mean, so is having vehicles with one or two, I mean, however we balance it out, I mean, is that sufficient for what the demand is for the number of wheelchair passengers?
Yes, so right now, with the new schedule that we're working on, we focused on managing groups and trips and trying to keep it to 1.8 trips per hour to move toward more closer to go to 2.1. And those wheelchair spaces, the space itself is conducive to that. So I can pull some data.
I'm just curious. So other people that ride wheels, sight impaired, maybe some other type of mobility impairment that isn't wheelchair bound?
Yes.
Yeah.
So a great example of that would be using the lift. So maybe they can't step up in a van or something like that and need more stability for the vehicle itself.
How often do the passengers have to be, whatever you call it, requalified to ride wheels?
Every 3 years.
Okay, we're gonna move into the actual budget, so Nikki.
Good morning. We are happy to present our draft of our 2026 budget. Passenger fares, right now we left that flat. If you have any questions about that, I'll turn that to Fred for passenger fares. But right now we're seeing that we think that's going to be what the trend is for this next year. Our advertising revenue was $320,000 this year. We have a contract for that, so the next contract year is $335,000. Our property tax revenue, we've gone with a 3.5% increase. We feel that this is a good place to be at 3.5%. We've seen a little more than that over the past few years, but we're going to go with 3.5% over our projection. State capital assistance, we can talk more about that on the capital side, but this is where we match our state funding, matches our capital maintenance for all of our maintenance expenses. That's also in the capital budget. Federal assistance, this is part of our paratransit costs and our capital maintenance. We can draw down some of those funds to go in the operating budget for those items. Our UK partnership agreement, this is the year for a new contract, so we left it flat from what the budget was this year, and so Fred's in the process of working on that. Our miscellaneous revenue, that consists of things like our fuel tax refund. We pay state taxes, we get a portion of that back. That also includes vending machine. What little bit we get from vending machines, we put that toward employee engagement. And we also, if you remember, several months ago, we opened a money market account, and this shows the dividends from that account. So we've been very pleased with that so far the last few months. So anyone have any questions on revenue?
So the federal assistance line item here and also the state capital assistance, are those over and above what's listed in the capital plan?
No,
Where there's a state funding and formula funding?
it's the same money.
It's the same money.
Mm-hmm.
So
There's a little bit more state money in the capital plan because that matches buses and things like that. But we can pull part of the cost for capital maintenance. We also call it preventive maintenance. That's all of our maintenance costs, things like any facility costs, any maintenance wages, anything to do with the facilities, anything to do with the buses. So we can pull part of that from our capital money. That's one of the probably the most confusing things because that revenue shows in both budgets.
Well, and it shows in different values is maybe where I'm getting tripped up. We've got 5.18 on the revenue side for federal assistance, our formula funding, which I believe is federal, right? Plus 5339,
So
add up to more like 7.5.
You're only matching things such as operating costs, like our maintenance costs. On the capital side, it's matching all the other items, matching computers, matching buses, matching things like the feasibility study. Anything that's in the capital budget, it matches that.
And then capital cost of contracting.
Capital cost of contracting, which is paratransit. So you can actually draw up to 50% of those costs, but we don't have enough federal funds to draw 50%. So we pretty much take care of everything else and then put what's left over to be able to pull that on the operating side.
So, Fred, what you were just pointing to me was that federal assistance and state capital assistance together are reflected on the cost side of the capital plan?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Everything at the top requires a match. Most of the time it's 80-20. Sometimes buses will be 85-15, but everything at the top will be more than what shows at the bottom.
So we're using capital funding. I'm sorry, this is not my expertise. So I'm not even good at asking the questions. So I see that we've got, you know, an equal number of capital projects spend versus capital projects funding at the 10.16 million. I guess what I'm focusing on the funding side of the capital plan, those values are different or more money than what's shown in the draft operating budget revenue?
Yes. So we will, so if you look at the numbers at the top, these numbers include the full cost of, say that our 5307 money will be approximately 6.8 million.
Mm-hmm.
So we look at everything that we need to buy out of that. We have our technology projects. We might have computers to buy. We might have, this is where we get shelters, benches, trash cans, anything for the facility that needs to be done. If maintenance buys a forklift, anything like that. So we take all of those costs and everything else that's left goes in the capital cost of contracting and capital maintenance. You'll see that 2.5 and the 2.6.
Mm-hmm.
That's the revenue that goes to the operating budget.
So this is distributed among these,
Right.
but these two show up over here.
So just capital cost of contracting and capital maintenance.
Yes,
Just expenses for the current year, right?
yes. So your capital cost of contracting, that money goes toward the paratransit cost, and the capital maintenance goes toward the cost of any maintenance items. It covers maintenance wages, covers fringe, contract maintenance for the facility, contract maintenance for the vehicles, and we're eligible to take part of our 5307 money to reimburse those costs.
So does that mean that the 5.18 million that's listed as federal assistance in the revenue budget is a part of the 6.8 million
Yes.
listed as 55307? Okay.
Yes.
That's how I should have asked it the first time 5 minutes ago. We could have saved ourselves a lot of time. Thank you.
That is one of the most confusing things. People try to add those two together and like, no, that's the same money. So it is very confusing. Okay, on our wages side, we had the contract for the collective bargaining agreement. We did that negotiation last year. So this reflects the 3.5% that's in the union contract. So the wages go up 3.5%, obviously, but also the new contract had a shorter time for new operators. our new service workers and utility workers to get to the top wage. It used to be 30 months, it's now 24 months. So you'll see a little bit, if you look at the total number, it'll be a little bit more than 3.5%. But that's the line item for that. Fringe benefits, we're looking at, mostly our concern is always health insurance. So we've budgeted for an increase in health insurance. And we've had a little bit of increase for matching for a 401k, which is a good thing. Seems like that was a huge hit in the last contract to match the 401k. So we did budget for that last year, but we've had actually more people to participate in that, so we raised that up. Our professional services include things like the audit. It includes our payroll services. It includes, lost my train of thought there for a second. It includes any legal services. This would also be our police officers that are at the transit center to help us with our security issues. It's any kind of contract maintenance that we hire out for repair on the buses, anybody that comes in for the facility for repairs, plumbers, all those great resolutions that you all like to do for elevators and plumbing, and all that's included in that line item. It also has the management contract in there, which has the cost is in the contract. Materials and supplies, we did bump this one up this year. We've seen a huge increase in bus parts, especially for the electric buses. That's one of Chris's main concerns, was the parts for the electric buses. He's seen that go up quite a bit. So we bumped that up a little bit more than we normally do. We think we'll end the year around $2 million, and we know that we have some engine rebuilds and some things like that that we'll be using that line item for. Our diesel fuel this year, we're happy that our diesel fuel did not come in where we were afraid it would last year. We had budgeted $3.80 last year. This year we're going with $3. We've been around between the $2.40 to $2.60 range for the last 18 months. So we're hoping that $3 is a good range. If something happens and it goes up, we can pull some of that money from materials and supplies to cover that. Fuel other is our CNG cost. We are using more CNG now than we are diesel. We've budgeted that at $2 a gallon. It's been running about $1.33, $1.35 for quite a while now. So we have budgeted more of that because we're using more of that than diesel. Utilities, that obviously phone, electricity. Insurance, we talk about this one just about every month at the board meeting. This is our property and liability insurance, the insurance for the buses, the facility, and everything. It went up last year. I had budgeted like 5% based on what the broker had told us, but it went up a lot more than that. So we've made up that difference in the projection. We've also increased that percentage. So we think that's going to come in around $1.2 million. It goes up, obviously, with the more buses we buy, especially electric buses, it goes up based on that too. Fuel taxes, this is where I mentioned earlier, we get part of this money back. We pay state fuel taxes and we get about 78% of that back. Paratransit expenses, this includes fuel. We pay all the fuel for those cutaways because we can get a better contract price. Assessments, Chris has put some money in here for repair. Some of those older vehicles that Fred mentioned are in desperate need of repair, so we put some of that in there. And then our cost per mile, or not cost per mile, cost per trip. We have a cost per trip of $26.38. It's in the contract, plus the fixed costs. And then we take out any fares for that. So we've come out, Randolph and I have done a lot more analyzing on that than, especially for the number of trips. It's hard to guess how many trips you're going to have, but he looks at that every day, so we feel pretty comfortable with that.
So is a trip a vehicle or a person?
It's a person, or
Trip is a vehicle.
it's a vehicle? Yeah, I always get that backwards.
There's different metrics. The NTD definition of a trip is a person, but as we invoice for the vehicle. Because sometimes you take a trip and don't get a person, and we still owe them for something.
Get multiple people up to 30.
Okay, our dues and subscriptions, most of that is our APTA dues. That's also some of our normal, like the, I don't know, any memberships that we have, or Chamber of Commerce fees, anything like that that we pay to be a member. But most of it's APTA dues. Travel, training, and meetings. That is all of our directors, managers, some of the other staff to continue with training. A lot of those are our APTA trips. Like Randolph and Jason just got back from APTA, as you saw the picture of Mike. We also budget for some of our supervisors that had to have certifications. So that's all of our travel and meetings. Media advertising. This is, we focused heavily this last year on hiring. So we should hopefully be able to let them get back to their normal advertising. They've got some advertising in here, obviously, for the transit center and some other things. There's some special PR stuff built into this. So we're hoping that I can let them get back to their normal jobs and not just hiring. Miscellaneous revenue, or miscellaneous expenses, I'm sorry. Miscellaneous expenses, those are bank fees, any other fees that we have. Is very small for the year. So our total operating budget is $37,968,000. So I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Just for our own education, what was our paratransit budget 2 years ago?
About 5.4 million.
That had to transpose in my head. It's 4.5 to 5.4. Yeah, so it's just I think helpful to understand the environment that we're in.
Yes.
With regards to the cost.
Yes, it was very difficult to go from a nonprofit to a different provider. This is actually more in line in what the industry standard is, although it's hard for us because we had 5 million, so.
Yeah, sweetheart deal. So from the finance committee's standpoint, that's a big hit, and so that's something that we look at when we go out in future years, just to make sure that it's not dwindling our nest egg, so to speak.
Yeah.
This just gives you an idea of how important that our property tax is. We're very thankful to the taxpayers of Fayette County. This is a huge part of our budget. Everything else seems very small compared to our property tax revenue. I always like these charts because it gives you a different perspective. This is our expenses. Obviously, since we're a service provider, wages and fringe are going to be the highest, and then paratransit is our second highest expense.
And as far as revenue sources goes, are we funding any of the operation out of our available fund balance?
No. No, we were able to balance the budget based on the revenue this year.
That's good.
Okay. Fred, do you want to talk about the capital plan, or do you want me to?
I can. Go for it.
Okay. We list FY25 on here. This shows you where we're at right now. Anything that's not used in this current year will carry over, such as a bus purchase. If we order a bus now, it may take 18 to 24 months, so that money carries over. The $600,000 that's in the first line in C and G should actually be in cutaways. That would be the carbon reduction program that Fred mentioned for trolleys
I'll talk about this for a moment. That's the downtown circulator project. Again, as I said before, we're not in a position to expand our operations. If we can find a willing partner to help fund operations for this project, that's where the capital will come from.
Nikki, let me ask you a
Our
question.
capital would be just providing the vehicle.
Yes, and we would be able to use those vehicles in other revenue service. So it would not just be limited to the circulator. That would be for 4 cutaways, using $120,000 of local match and $480,000 of carbon reduction. Those are those bottom 2 line items on the capital plan.
Nikki, on 2025, the local share, has that already hit the statements?
Part of it has, not all of it. That part of that is the transit center that we've spent some money on, and also most of the items for all of the items for 5307 are matched by the state. The CMAQ grant, if you see the congestion mitigation and air quality program, that is included in the local match. And we have not, pardon me?
Carbon reduction has not hit yet.
Carbon reduction has not hit, no. So part of it, it's hard, it's very hard when some of these may cross fiscal years.
Yeah.
Okay, Fred mentioned our paratransit vehicles. We've set aside our 5339 formula funding, which is around $600,000. We've set that aside for the next few years to concentrate on that paratransit fleet. Hopefully, we don't know right now, hopefully there'll be some other competitive grants that'll come out that we could ask for fixed route buses, but right now we need to focus on our paratransit vehicles, and that 5339 money is good to do that because $600,000 you can buy several cutaways, and you can only buy a portion of a fixed route bus. So
Where's the balance of the 1.3 coming from?
So we're supporting that with $300,000 of local money. So that's at the bottom.
So it's the 604 plus 300 of the 420.
Yes. And then was there a little bit left over that rolled over? Is that where there's
Yes.
something from?
You mean you're rolling over from this year?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that 1.3 that's the 10 paratransit vehicles that we have programmed in here.
Okay, ITS Technology Services. This is our avail that you hear us talk about. This is our warranty and mostly the warranty for it and our all of the software that goes with that. Non-revenue vehicle, that $85,000 is a maintenance pickup truck. It's been several years since they've had a maintenance vehicle, so we're hoping to purchase one of those in the next year. We just recently replaced a lot of or not replaced, but added to the small Ford Escapes that we use as support vehicles for the supervisors. So we replaced those in 2024, so we're hoping we won't need to do that for a while. Capital cost of contracting, capital maintenance, we talked about earlier. Transit enhancements, this includes what you've seen in the ramp program for the last few years, shelters, benches, and trash cans. We lowered that to $50,000 in this year because we had done so much with the ramp project, and we bumped that back up to $75,000 for the next few years. Then new shelters, replacement shelters, trash cans, benches, all of those. Hardware and software, this is for our computer equipment. As you know, computer equipment is becoming more obsolete. As soon as you buy it, it's pretty much, there's something new out there. So we're trying to keep up with the times on our technology and our software. We have several software programs that we use. We have one for purchasing, maintenance. Maintenance does diagnostic, has diagnostic software. Shop tools, equipment, and facilities. This part of this line item, we've put money here, as George said, for building repairs. If something happens that something in the building needed to be repaired, this would be the first place that we would see what we could pull money from. This is any equipment that we need to buy. Shop tools would be things such as forklifts, anything larger size shop tools. And then security equipment, we're required to have 0.75% of the entire 5307 money that goes towards security equipment. FTA is very adamant on having your assets protected. That's why we have to have a fence, we have to have security measures in place, so they require you to spend so much on security. So that also includes our cameras, our signage for safety, things like that, so
What percent did you say?
0.75.
Is that just in our infrastructure buildings or in our buses too?
Everything.
Everything?
And anything that we need that is not in that, if it's a huge repair or something like that, we would take it out of the equipment and facilities. But anything security related, we would, they require you to show every training review what you've spent for security. So that's why we replace our cameras, things like that quite often. Any questions? And I think we talked about the revenue. We have our 5307 funding, which is 80% federal, 20% state. Bus and bus facilities is also 80% federal, 20% state. The Section 5310, that is for anything above and beyond ADA requirements. We've had solar lighting at the shelters. We've had some wheelchair improvements at the shelters, things like that. So that is a competitive grant, so we could see funding for that. We also have a sub-recipient that receives some of that funding, which is not listed here. State funding I mentioned. We have the carbon reduction that Fred talked about, and then our local share.
So on the state funding, that's the matches, the 5307 and 5339?
Yes.
Okay. It's not included. 5307 is all federal.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, 6.8 is federal, the 605,000 is federal, and then 1.8 matches that for the state. Any questions?
So the state funding line item on the capital plan is different money than the 1.7 state capital assistance in the budget?
It's the same money, but not all of the state funding goes toward the operating budget. That state funding will go to, for those paratransit vehicles also, 20%. It'll match 20% of our hardware, software, our security equipment, and paratransit vehicles.
Okay.
I don't know how you all do this.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Nikki.
I believe that is our report.
All for now. Okay. So this becomes a resolution at what time?
Next week.
Next week? Okay.
But usually we don't go through it to this level of detail.
Great.
We would just pass it, hopefully pass it.
You mentioned that there were some updates that would be coming. Is that specific to just the capital plan, or sorry, the capital program document? No changes to the numbers that we saw
We
today?
would make no changes to the numbers that you saw today.
Okay.
And we might make the one clarification for the CNG bus purchase, that we probably do need to make that clarification.
Yeah,
That that's a
I'll fix-
cutaway, that's not CNG.
I'll fix that one.
That's that first line, the $600,000.
Right.
We'll make that clarification, but the numbers won't change.
And I think what I heard you say is that's to buy one CNG cutaway.
That's
Four
But they're not
cutaways.
CNG.
Right, they're not CNG.
That's-
Four
that's what it
cutaways,
is.
but we'd only buy those if a partner comes to the table to operate a circular?
Yes.
Okay. And what's our level of confidence of that?
This has more legs than it has in the past. So I'm not saying that it won't happen. There's a possibility.
Okay.
A
Are
real
you
possibility.
able to say with whom or?
It's a partnership between us, the city, Lex Park is involved, Civic Lex is involved. There's several other small partners, so.
Okay.
All right. Very good. If there's no other discussion, we will adjourn. I appreciate everybody's time.
Well, I have a quick announcement to make.
Oh, yeah? Sure.
Today will be my last day. So,
no, I'm sorry.
my time is just, I don't like to be sloppy. It's making me feel like being sloppy, so.
Well, we very much appreciate the effort and time that you've put in. It's been very important, especially on the finance side. I know that your insights have always been really, really valuable. So we appreciate your service and we will miss you.
We're gonna miss you a lot.
Thank you. Thank you, I miss you guys as well.
Thank you.
Thank you all for all the work that you put into this and making it in a somewhat digestible format.
Not much is more confusing than transportation funding and finance.
Wow.
It is really.
I don't know how, I honestly don't know how y'all do it. But thank you.
Yes.
This is why I'm a lawyer and not an accountant.
It's also why our fearless leader is an architect and not an accountant.
All right. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.